Hey, what's going on, guys? The Horror Man back with my ranking of the Halloween franchise. So we all know that the trailer for the new Halloween movie was officially released yesterday, and I have to say, it looks incredible. There are plenty of videos already on YouTube of people discussing it, so I won't be doing that here. However, I thought that this would be the perfect opportunity to rank the franchise. I will be ranking each of the 10 existing films of the franchise from my least favorite to favorite, and I will also be including different versions of some of the films. As always, please keep in mind that this is just my opinion. I will try not to spend too much time talking about any of the movies, since there are quite a few to get through. So here it is, my ranking of the Halloween films from least favorite to favorite. Coming in dead last is Halloween Resurrection. If I'm being completely honest, I am not a fan of this film. I did enjoy it when it was first released, but it was more of a forced enjoyment than anything. I was really excited for this one. I couldn't wait for the follow-up to Halloween H2O. And the trailers looked pretty good at the time, but upon watching it, I was very disappointed. And I have to say, it's one of those situations where the more I watch this one, the less I actually like it. I don't care about any of the characters. The whole Busta Rhymes ninja thing just does not work for me. And Halloween Resurrection is definitely, without a doubt, my least favorite film in the Halloween franchise. Up next is Halloween: The Homecoming. Now this is basically just an alternate version of Halloween Resurrection, but I definitely prefer this cut of the film. While it's still not my favorite, it's better than what we got theatrically in Resurrection. And I also prefer the title, The Homecoming. It just sounds better. This has an alternate opening, extra scenes added throughout the film, and an alternate ending. But what really does it for me is the character of Deckard. He's my favorite character in Resurrection, but he sort of has to take a backseat to other characters. You know, he doesn't get a lot of screen time. And in this version of the film, he's a lot more important. In Resurrection, Busta Rhymes, as odd as this may sound, is actually the hero, whereas in Halloween: The Homecoming, Deckard has a more heroic role. So that's why I actually prefer Halloween: The Homecoming to Halloween Resurrection. Next on my list is Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, the theatrical edition. Now this was obviously the cut of the film that we all saw in theaters, and when I first saw it, I really didn't enjoy it that much. Sort of like Halloween Resurrection, I was expecting a lot more from this, especially because I was a fan of Rob Zombie's Halloween remake, but the sequel, it just didn't do it. I was very disappointed. I left the theater feeling disappointed, and I really didn't even want to see it again. But of course that changed when the DVD and Blu-ray was released, and I decided to pick it up, give it another shot, and I'm glad that I did, because this is one of the movies that actually has grown. Unlike Resurrection, when I watch Resurrection, I like it less and less each time. With this movie, I like it more and more, and I'm glad, because I do want to like this film, and I'm happy to say that now that I've watched it a bunch of times, I really appreciate it for what it is. The theatrical edition is actually a lot different from the director's cut, and I'll be talking about the director's cut in a bit, but the theatrical edition is okay. I understand that Rob Zombie was doing something different. He went on in a different route with this one, and I can appreciate that. Next up is the unrated director's cut of Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Now I mentioned when I was talking about the theatrical cut of what a different film this was. Rob Zombie really went in a different direction with Halloween 2. And the same can actually be said between the two different versions, because they end very differently. I don't like giving spoilers in my videos, you guys know that, so if you've seen both versions of the film, then you know how differently they end. And the reason why I rank the director's cut higher is because I prefer the ending of the director's cut. Loomis also has more screen time in the director's cut, which is another reason why I prefer it to the theatrical edition. Up next is the unrated director's cut of Rob Zombie's Halloween. A little throwback here with the Blockbuster exclusive DVD edition. I thought this would be a fun one to show. But what can I say? I actually love this remake. I know a lot of people were against the original movie being remade since it's such a classic, but I actually like what Rob Zombie did with it. You know, if you're gonna remake a classic film, you have to do it like this. It has to be different enough. You know, keep a lot of the same, but use your own vision, and that's what Rob Zombie did. When Psycho was remade, it was basically remade shot for shot, and a lot of people hated it. So Rob Zombie did something different with his Halloween remake, and still, a lot of people hated it. But I wasn't one of them. I saw the movie opening night at the drive-in, and then again in the regular theater, and I enjoyed it both times. I really did. However, that was the theatrical release of the film. The unrated director's cut has a different scene of Michael escaping, you know, among other things, and I'm not a fan of the way he escapes in the director's cut. I do think it was a bit over the top. It was a bit much. You know, I'm not prudish by any means. It's a horror movie. It's supposed to be violent and graphic and all that. I just prefer his escape method in the theatrical version. I do. So that's why Halloween, the unrated director's cut, is ranked here, while the work print edition of Rob Zombie's Halloween is ranked here. That's right, I actually prefer the work print to the director's cut. This is a very different cut of the film, and it was actually the first cut that I saw. I owned this DVD before I even saw the movie in theaters, so I went in curious to see, you know, what Rob Zombie was going to keep from the work print, you know, what he was going to add to the theatrical release, you know, how different the movies were going to be. And they're very different. The work print has a lot of additional scenes not shown in the theatrical cut or the director's cut of Halloween. It also has an alternate ending, which I actually prefer to the rest of them. It's also a much shorter version of the film, despite having the extra scenes, so the pacing is a lot quicker. I don't want to say too much more about it because I am going to say a bit more about all three versions of Rob Zombie's Halloween when I get to the theatrical release on this list. Next is the theatrical edition of Rob Zombie's Halloween. I've already given my opinion about this movie, but I will say that this is pretty much a hybrid of the work print version and the director's cut, and it has the best qualities of both. I prefer the escape scene in this version, I like the ending, and the pacing is good as well. It seems to me that Michael Myers is the main character in the director's cut, Loomis is the main character in the work print version, and Laurie is the main character in the theatrical cut. If you watch all three versions and truly pay attention to the differences, I think you might agree. Next up on my list is the rough cut of Halloween 6. It's a rough cut, it's unfinished, but I own it, so I'm including it here. From there, we move on to the finished cut of Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. And this is probably even more of a mess than the rough cut. You guys all know the backstory with this one regarding the producer's cut and that whole fiasco. And what we got in the theaters is just a mess of a film. It doesn't make any sense. Seriously, pay attention next time you're watching The Curse of Michael Myers. It doesn't make sense. The director's cut of Halloween 6 is next on my list, and it doesn't make much sense either, because it's actually the same film with just an alternate opening and added gore. So while the kills are definitely better and more graphic, it's still a mess of a film. And then we have a rare case in which the television cut of a film is actually better than the theatrical, because the TV cut of Halloween 6 is a hybrid of the theatrical release and the producer's cut. So while it doesn't completely make sense itself, it does have some extra scenes that are very cool to see. You know, gore is edited out obviously because it's on TV, but it follows a better flow than the theatrical release, and that's why I actually prefer it to the previous versions of the film. And very quickly, for those curious about this, this is a 5-disc set of Halloween 666, The Origin of Michael Myers. There's 1 disc of special features, and then 4 versions of the film. It has the producer's cut, the rough cut, the director's cut, and the television cut. Very cool. And speaking of the producer's cut, here it is next on my list, Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers, the unrated producer's cut. This is the preferred version of the film for me, and I love the ending. It's actually one of my favorite endings in the franchise. I know a lot of people don't like the whole Curse of the Thorn storyline, And after watching the theatrical version, I can see why. Because it doesn't make sense. But watch the producer's cut. It's definitely executed a lot better. Next is Halloween 2. This is definitely a Halloween season staple for me. I watch it every year, and I've watched it every year for as long as I can remember. I remember being a kid and being so sad about Ben Tramer's death. I don't know what it was. I just felt so bad for him, especially finding out that it wasn't Michael Myers. It was just some poor kid in a mask. It always bothered me. But love the hospital setting in this one. It's very creepy. In a hospital that supposedly has a lot of patients, you don't see too many of them. It's a very, very, quiet, just empty hospital, and it just adds to the atmosphere. But what's even better than that is another rare case of a TV cut being better than the theatrical cut, and it's the Halloween 2 TV version. The reason I prefer this one is because of the added scene at the end. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. I know it sounds silly, but I just felt like we didn't get the closure in the theatrical cut of Halloween 2 that we get in the TV version. Next up is sort of the black sheep of the Halloween franchise because there's no Michael Myers. Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. I love this movie, and I've said many times before that if it was simply called Season of the Witch and didn't have the Halloween title, I bet it would get a lot more credit, which it deserves, because this movie is awesome. It has a fantastic Halloween atmosphere, a great storyline, and the awesome Tom Atkins. It's another movie that I watch every Halloween season, and that Silver Shamrock theme song gets stuck in your head. It's great. Next on my list is Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. This is another one that gets a lot of hate from fans, but I think it's a lot of fun. It's cheesy, it's corny, it plays that silly music every time the cops are on screen, but I enjoy it. Jamie Lloyd is my favorite character in the entire franchise, and she really shines in this movie. I also don't mind the way Michael Myers sort of paces back and forth in this one. This one also features some of the best kills in the series. Up next is Halloween H2O. I loved this movie the first time I saw it, and I still love it now. I remember renting it on VHS, watching it, rewinding it, and then watching it again, back to back. That's how much I enjoyed it. It was awesome seeing Laurie Strode back after so many years, and this movie definitely had a 90s feel to it. It almost felt like Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer, The Faculty. And that makes sense, because the original screenplay was actually written by Kevin Williamson, who wrote all of those films that I just mentioned. So it all sort of comes together. I like the cast in this one. I love the pacing. It's very short, so it goes by very quickly. It starts out right away. Great cameo by Janet Leigh. The one thing that I don't like about this movie was the masks. Not so much the plain white mask used, but that computerized mask on Michael. It just looked ridiculous. But that mask problem is rectified in my next pick, Halloween H2O, the work print version. There's only one mask used in this film, and it's that one right there. That's definitely an improvement over the computerized mask in the theatrical release. This version also features alternate takes and even deleted scenes that weren't featured in the theatrical cut. So for those reasons, I prefer the work print version of Halloween H2O to the theatrical version. We are getting close to the end now, and up next is Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. This is my favorite sequel in the series, and it introduces Jamie Lloyd, who I already mentioned is my favorite character in the entire franchise. I love the atmosphere in this one. I love the setting in the house. It's very claustrophobic, and I actually even like the mask. This is probably the movie in the franchise that I watch the most, even more than the original, just because I love it that much. I also think Loomis is at his absolute best and craziest in Halloween 4. So that's another plus. Oh yeah, and the ending? Fantastic. Next up is the extended edition of John Carpenter's Halloween. While I do love the added scenes in this, there is something about it that knocks it down to second place. And it's the fact that we find out that Laurie and Michael are sister and brother. Because without that information, we have a truly scary slasher film about an escaped mental patient who is trying to kill an innocent babysitter for no reason whatsoever. And that is, of course, the storyline for the original theatrical cut of John Carpenter's Halloween, my favorite film in the Halloween franchise. So there you have it, guys, my ranking of the Halloween franchise. Comment below, let me know how you would rank the films, and as always, if you feel up to it, post a video response. I'd love to see your ranking video. Thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it.